Welcome back, mamas. Thank you so much for tuning back in. We have a very, very important podcast today. Sometimes we share awesome testimonies or just some tips and tricks, but today we feel is very, very strong in our hearts, something that's so important to share that we know God wants out there more. And it is the topic of sex trafficking. We have a special guest here. I was actually connected with her through my friend Andrea. So God works out all things. It was very interesting. It was about a month and a half. Maybe it was a little bit longer because you've been pretty tied up since we first spoke.
Yep.
But I remember it was just so much on my heart of getting this topic out there. And I reached out to a company. They never reached back out. And then it was just a few short weeks later that Andrea reached out and connected us. So it's such a God thing.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
So this lady is a superhero, and Samantha and I don't even fully know her story, so we like to save these for the podcast. But again, Meredith, thank you so very much for coming today.
Absolutely.
We're so excited, and we're so thankful to God for people like you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it is an honor to be able to share any piece of this mission to any ears, any heart that will listen. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
It's a hard topic.
Yeah.
Not for the faint of heart.
No, and not everybody wants to hear it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Meredith, do you want to give the audience a brief intro before we get started?
Yeah, sure. So yes, my name is Meredith, and I'm the founder of Tigerlili Resources. I am from the St. Louis area. I grew up here, but I moved away probably in 2001, and I lived in Florida for about 15 years and came back to the St. Charles area in 2015, 2016. And I have one son. He's 21. He is my ultimate sidekick, and he was very much on mission with me from the time he was 14 until now.
No way.
Yeah, and he has just a huge compassionate heart. So he's decided to join the Illinois National Guard. So he serves our country along after serving with Mama. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
How did you even get into this?
Well, I will kind of tie the two together because if it wasn't for my life, you know, the mission wouldn't have happened, right? So we are a Midwest ministry with a national reach. We fight human trafficking, we raise awareness, and we serve survivors. And I'm a survivor myself.
Wow.
So I was trafficked in 2010, 2011 in Broward County, Florida, time when I lived down there. And I saw many aspects of the commercial sex industry. So I know that the Lord had me in that as my training ground. I really got to see the dark underbelly and the ins and outs of various elements of, working in brothels. Eventually I was sold online out of hotel rooms. So
can you give us a little actual incident of how this first happened? Or,
yeah. Honestly, this is the crime of the most vulnerable. Nobody is exempt from this. If you are in a state of vulnerability, it has an easy way to grab a hold of you. So I was going through a divorce. I was becoming a suddenly single mom, and I wasn't fully divorced yet. We were separated, and my ex and I were together for about 13 years. And when he left, I had my son, but he also took everything else with him. So basically he drained the bank accounts, right?
Wow.
So I had my son, the house, the car, the dogs, all the bills, and so I was in serious financial vulnerability.
Sure.
And, I wasn't a stranger to nightlife or the commercial sex industry. I actually was a dancer when I was 21. Mm-hmm. So this was much later, so I was too old to be a dancer, right? But I knew that was my fallback. There was a lot of, backstory to why I even got to that low point. Yeah.
There always
Yes,
yeah. And
sure.
that could be a whole nother show,
Sure. Right.
but, I had exhausted, in my mind, I exhausted all options.
Can we just point out to you right before the podcast? She's like, oh my gosh, I have this
Well, she choked on her coffee and
Yeah.
made her.
my voice is just
It's
gone
my
away
fault.
from me.
Right? The coffee was delicious, and my second sip,
You just have a sexy raspy voice.
Right?
We're just
And I
gonna
can
run with it.
fit the
but
part.
if she
Yeah.
needs to stop and take a drink,
Yeah.
So we're
freshen
moving
the
on with
pipes.
this podcast
Yeah.
no matter what.
The message is getting out, so just deal with the raspiness, okay?
It sounds cute.
Nora Jones.
Yeah. But yeah, so I had exhausted in my mind all options of job opportunities, career choices, whatever. So I knew sex sold.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, well, God gave it to me. I better put it to work. Otherwise, I'm going to be homeless.
And you knew God at this time?
Ish.
I mean, yeah. Okay,
Ish.
sure.
You know, I grew up in the Catholic church. I went to Catholic grade school. I knew there was God. I knew I could pray. But in my mind, I had to pray through 20,000 saints to get to him.
Yeah.
Right. So at least I had the foundation and knowledge of who he was. Even in like while I was being trafficked, I would pray. It was like some of the most terrifying times of my life, and like painfully terrifying, like sounds of the hum of a light hurt. That's how scary it was. Right. And I would pray and I would be like, you know, God, you know, if you hear me, you know, I'm going to throw it out there. And my prayer would always be, you know, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this. I know you hate that I'm doing this, but please keep me safe. Please don't let me die. Please don't let me go to jail.
Yeah.
It was never a prayer of, Lord, get me out of this.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was an option for me. And honestly, I didn't even know that what I was in had a name. I just thought it was my life. And it wasn't until like 6 years later that I learned I was trafficked.
Did you go out on your own and then like do they kidnap you? Like
What does
what
it
is
look
that?
like?
Yeah,
look
everybody's story is so different. Like nobody's is exactly the same, but it is, like I said, it's a crime of the most vulnerable. So knowing what I came from, right, that industry, I knew what to look for, you know, and in Florida, there's a very big niche of like adult entertainment, of escort services, things like that, right? So I was like, well, I'll start escorting, you know, and it started.
So you almost thought you started and you had the control.
Yes.
Versus
Oh, yeah.
it flipped.
Yeah. And so I started escorting, and then, I don't know what the shift was, but I was like, I probably shouldn't do this on my own, you know? Then I found down there was a whole lot of, it's called all girl staff, and, it's a brothel. So where I was at, the all girl staff was fantasy photography, right? There was no photography about it. Like the camera was this little like janky camera with no film in it, right? But it sat there, so we could say that's the camera, right?
Yeah.
But it was literally in a strip mall, in a storefront next door to like a Tire Kingdom. I don't know exactly the business, but it was, you know, like a Tire Kingdom. So guys would go take their cars to get fixed, pop on next door while they were waiting. Yeah. And it was, you know, ring the doorbell, the front door opens, you stand in the lobby, there's a camera on.
It's a whole business.
Oh, it's a whole business. Yeah. And it was much like if you rented like a booth, if you were a hairstylist, you know, you would do your day and then you would have to dump a whole lot of money into this hole in the wall, and that would go to the house. Right. So it was like you paying your rent for being able to do that.
And was it good money? Like how much could you pull in a day?
Oh, I don't even remember now. It was not good. I mean, not good money for what I was doing, you know?
Sure.
And that was actually the point of how I even started going deeper, because I was like, I'm not making enough money for what I'm doing, and I'm giving the house so much money.
Right.
So I'm going to go find something better.
Be an independent contractor.
Right. Well, no, I was like, I'm going to find a better agency company, whatever. Right. So again, I know what I'm looking for. So I sought it out, and it was, the name of it was Platinum Modeling Agency. It was not a modeling agency. I knew that. So yeah, I was looking online, and a lot of things could have been found on Craigslist.com. Right. And that's how I found these ones, or just even through searches, but I picked through several of them. And Platinum Modeling Agency, it just had that look of a better agency, right?
And you knew. So
I knew.
like the sheriff department should know all, like if you
Yes.
could literally like scour through that easy
Yeah.
and find what it is.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
And they know. And so when I you know started contact with them, they operated it very much like a business. You know, they were like, okay, well, send us in, like a modeling agency too. Send us in your headshot, send us in a full shot. You know, be in a bikini and front, back, blah blah blah. And then we need your driver's license, social security number, so you can get paid. Right. And this whole time I'm like, you are so full of it. But I'm like, okay, I got to do this, right? Like that was my last option, and so I thought. So I started the whole process, and that was the one that I was sold out of the hotel rooms. That was the trafficking ring. And that was so, there were so many levels to it. You know, I never saw, we'll call him Joe. That was like the main guy. Never saw him ever. Spoke over the phone with him, emailed stuff. But then when I was on site at the hotel, there was a guy, Travis, he was my watcher, and he would sit out in the parking lot, and he would get notifications from another girl who was an appointment setter, who would take the appointments off of because it was online. It was all.
So they made sure to like stay like a little distance away from the
Yeah.
actual, yeah.
Yep. Like 3 degrees of separation, you know? Yeah. And so there was a girl, my name was Stacy. And I was like, why is my name Stacy? I don't even like, I don't like Stacy. Can I use something else? And, they had like different files, and so anyway, so people would call in, they would set appointments, and then they would come up to the hotel, and Stacy would tell Travis, hey, there's a guy coming at 2:00, and then Travis would message me and be like, hey, there's a guy coming up. He's wearing whatever, be ready. Right. So I would sit, it was the hotels too. They were like the outside entrance. It was not like you don't go through the lobby to come up to the elevator. You just go up the steps on the that walkway.
Okay.
So he could see them coming in and out. And I would sit on the chair at the little circle table next to the bed, would not touch the bed until I had to, right? Because it was like, it was horrible. Yeah. And I had nothing on, no TV, no music, no nothing. I didn't have the lights on. I had the bathroom light on and like the door cracked just enough to like break the dark. But I couldn't handle the light. I couldn't handle the sound of the lights. Sure. But I know, like, that's when I would pray. I would sit in that chair, and that's when I'd be like, okay, don't let me die. Just don't let me go to jail. Let me get home. I would do this during the day.
And so you were like working their 8-hour shift and going home to your son?
Pretty much, yeah. I would drop him off at school. I would go do that. He would go to aftercare, and I would be back in time to get him from aftercare. Or actually, from aftercare, he would go to a neighbor upstairs. We lived in an apartment, and he would go to the neighbor upstairs, and I would get him from there. Yeah. So it was,
sure, that
was life.
Yeah.
And so I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and just dependent on who would come to the door. You never knew who was coming, right? And I would open up the door, and if it was anybody that had any kind of couth at all, they would look at me. They would look above me, and they would look at me again and be like, I gotta go. And they would leave, right? Other ones who were just down for what they were doing wouldn't even look at me and just barrel into the room, right? And it happened so much that the top guy asked Travis, what is up with this girl? Is she like a fat pig or something? Why does she have so many walkouts, right? Now I know, looking back, I know I had a 15-foot angel behind me protecting me, as much as possible.
Don't you love how God works?
Yes. Like I absolutely know without a doubt that he allowed me to do it, right? Because I chose to do it. Sure. I walked myself into it. But it was a very, very slippery slope, but in it, he was totally protecting me through it, He
knew he was calling you to something.
Yeah. And he didn't waste any of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do they make it really hard for you to get out of it? Like, is there threats? Okay.
Yeah. Like mine, I could come and go, right? So I wasn't chained. I wasn't a drug addict. I wasn't, but they had me here and they had me here because they knew I was a single mom. They knew, I had a little boy. They knew where I lived because I had to give them my information, right?
Did they try to butter you up as much as they tried to put fear in you, or was that not like that?
They kind of knew, like, okay, Travis had a good read on me, and he knew I was just a genuine, right? Like, what I mean? Like, I had some wit about me, but I was just in a predicament, Right. So he tried a couple times to test me, but I would tell him, like, Travis, knock it off. Yeah. You know why I'm here. Okay. Yeah. And then he would back down. But there would always be like the holding back of money. If you don't come back, we know where you live. So there was for me there was more threat on me than there was buttering up.
Did you witness any young girls within that ring?
I didn't see anybody else but me. They kept us all separate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Oh, yes, they do.
And,
oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
And I know they had a lot of girls. I know they did. Yeah. Yep.
So what was next steps from that point? And how long were you involved in it?
Too long. So I would say probably like, I don't know, mid to late 2010 to like January of 2011. So I would say 6 months ish, right? Too long, way too long. But just like in praying and praying and praying, just something shifted in me. I had this boldness, and I'm like, you guys are not going to do anything. You are not going to risk what you've got going on for me you're just going to go find somebody else.
It's all threats.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like now I'm like, well, they did go find somebody else. Right. But at the time I wasn't even thinking about the, effects of, oh, they're just going to go get somebody else and it's going to happen to somebody else. I didn't even think that far, but I was just like, you're not going to do anything to me. Right.
Yeah.
And one day I was coming home and I had a little bit of time between when I, left and when I had to pick my son up. And I just had this nudge in me. And this, what's so cool is like, I always heard from the Lord before I even knew I was hearing from him, and he always highlights all these things. Like, remember when I told you that? Remember when I told you that? So I was coming home and I was getting off on our exit, and right on the corner was Gander Mountain. Right. So like Bass Pro, Gander Mountain. There they had this really nice game restaurant. It was called Tall Tales. And the Lord
Sorry about the bird in the background.
I know. I was like, cheapers, can you stop cheaping?
And we keep recording.
That's right. It's okay.
Here we are.
Yeah. So I was getting off the exit and I just had this prompt of like, hey, go in there. They're hiring. And I'm like, okay. Right. So I went into the restaurant and I walked in and I'm like, hey, just wanted to get an application, see if you guys are hiring and all. And they're like, oh, we are looking for a bartender. And I'm like, all right, I'll take an application. Right. So I filled out an application and it was for a daytime bartender, which in Florida, that doesn't happen. Somebody has to die to get that spot because it's all hospitality down there, And so I filled out the application. I actually talked to the manager right then. That also doesn't happen. I got hired right then. That also doesn't happen.
Wow.
And I think I started like the next day or two. Wow. So that was my open door out, and I was like, I don't care if it's bartending. I'm out,
So you were at that point, line drawn.
I was done. Yeah. And I knew, I was like, I am good.
Yeah.
And I did not look back. Yeah. And honestly, I forgot about it. I just, closed it off because I was like, that was a chapter of my life that I lived through. Nobody knows that it happened. I survived it. Yeah. I'm good. Right. And then it was like 6 years later that the reality of what that was hit me like a train.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at a friend's house and we were watching a documentary, which I highly, highly recommend. It is called Nefarious, Merchant of Souls.
Not for kids, I imagine.
Not for kids, no.
Older.
Older. Yeah, older.
So they say that one more time.
Nefarious, Merchant of Souls. And it is put on by Exodus Cry. And they are another organization. They're out of Kansas City, Missouri. But they do global abolitionist. And they are phenomenal. They've had a lot of very good documentaries. That one's specifically for trafficking. But they have other ones of like the hookup culture and porn and whatever. And it's just they're a very good organization. So we're watching that, and that takes like a big global look at trafficking around the world. And it hits like Cambodia, Amsterdam, I don't know, a few other places,
Sure.
And then it lands in Vegas. And there's like 3 girls that it talks about their stories. And one of the girls, Annie, she's telling her story and it just went, and I was like, what? That was my life.
Yeah.
Like, how did that? And it was just like, I just went into this like vortex of what,
Yeah.
And I think, afterwards we were talking about it, but it might as well have just been like Charlie Brown talk. I was not paying attention. And so I went home and I'm sobbing the whole way home. And I'm just like, now at this point, I know the Lord. I got saved, right? Okay. I had been saved since 2013. Baptized in 2014, and this took place in 2016. Okay. And so I'm driving home, bawling my eyes out, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, don't let me crash. Okay. Like, I can't even see straight.
What was the biggest emotion of it all?
It was just shock. It was just everything.
Yeah.
It literally was like the Lord pulled a whole thread in like 0.2 seconds, like from the first time I ever stepped foot on the stage as a dancer when I was 21 up until the last time I walked out of that hotel room. Wow. It was like that. Wow. And I was just, he showed me every single time the enemy like took me different ways. And I just went, and it was just, it took my breath away, So I get home and the next day, so now at this point we're back in St. Charles. We're in St. Charles area. And my son had the bright idea that he wanted to be homeschooled. And we did. That was crazy. But he was homeschooled from 7th grade until he graduated. Oh. And so, he was independent enough to do the studies and stuff. So he was playing baseball. And he had practice one afternoon. It was like a 3-hour practice. So I went and dropped him off. I was coming home to work. Right. So when I came back to the area, I brought Tigerlili with me. I started Tigerlili in Florida. There's a whole nother story to that too, of how that started. Yeah. But so I brought Tigerlili with me. And so I was planning on, and it was new. So I had a lot of work to do.
So, but then how did you even get to that? I'm going to fight again. Was it something inside you? You knew, did God say now go?
Ish. Okay. So when we started when I say we, because it was totally Jesus and me, right? It's like he and I started it completely. But I had.
We should start saying that.
But it's totally we.
Yeah. I know, but when we all.
Yeah. Seriously. He taught me how to do everything. I didn't know how to start this, But so I was bartending. And then I ended up going back, and I had done real estate at one point in time of my life. And I was like, I'm going to get back into it. So I went back, got my real estate license, and that's like starting your own business, right? Mm-hmm. So to amp up my income while I was waiting, I was looking for a part-time something in real estate, sure. Just to kind of stay in the industry. And I stumbled upon this job that was, I thought, part-time helping out at an office on Palm Beach Island. Okay. Which is where Mar-a-Lago and all of that is there. Mm-hmm. Bajillionaires. Okay.
Yeah.
So I apply for this job. I get the job. And then I discover it's not part-time. It's full-time office manager of this little boutique real estate place. Well, you don't say no to that, right?
No.
So I start doing that, and it's a small office. There's 4 agents, and they're gone all the time doing showings and stuff. So I'm doing all of the computer stuff. So I'm there hours by myself, and it wouldn't take me long to get my work done. So I would just piddle around online and look for stuff. And I started seeing people that would come into the office, just, filthy rich, but they were so shallow. They were so empty. They were so judgmental. They were just ugly people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Lord, you did not get me out of that for this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You've got something more. This is soul suffocating.
Right.
And so I spent many days just talking to Jesus about what's happening,
Also makes you stop and think about life itself. They have everything they could have ever wanted, and look at them.
And they're miserable. Yeah. Miserable. Right. Just ugly, ugly people. Yeah. So I started with okay, well, I was a single mom, right? And if I thought that that's all I had left, there's thousands of other moms out there that are struggling with the same decision. Mm-hmm. And I don't want another woman to have to walk into something because that's all she thinks she's got, So we started serving single moms. Mm-hmm. And the name, how we even got the name.
So what was step one? You yourself and Jesus decided to serve single moms. So what did that look like at first?
I didn't know yet. I really didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. The name came first.
Know.
Yeah. The name
we got community. That's all we had that we for what we started. So it's interesting that.
Well, yeah, I did. I honestly, I didn't know what that was going to be.
Yeah.
And I was in the process of transitioning from that office, out to another area that was called Wellington. And that's as far west that you could go before you hit the Everglades, but equally as nice of a demographic, right? But even still, horrible experience, right? It was lots of bad things happened there. And I was mad. I was like, Jesus, I gave my life to you. Why is this? This right. is not right, right? So I just started going to a new church. It was right around Easter time. I went back on the prayer walk, and I was going to have a to-do with Jesus. I had my purse, my coffee. We were going to sit for a minute and talk.
You sit down, listen to me.
You're the second person that's been on the podcast that said, who was the other person?
That said that they were going to sit down and sit back.
I have it out.
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't remember.
Know. Yeah. Somebody said that too.
So I'm there's a big cross, because it's the prayer walk for Easter stuff. So I'm going to say something, and I just had this pause, and he's like, come closer. Right. So I went a little closer, and I'm ready to say it, whatever. And he's like, come closer. And I ended up literally Indian style around the cross, hugging on and just bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, Jesus, I can't do this. You say you got my life,
right.
then you take it. Do whatever you want with it. I suck at this, obviously, so I quit and you got it, okay? And so I'm just ugly, ugly tears. And I literally felt like he lifted my chin and he was like, little girl, like, get up and go do what I have for you. Okay. So I went home and I sat down at the computer and literally within like 48 hours, I had the premise of Tigerlili.
Like it downloaded.
It just fire out of my fingers. Yes. And I sat back from the keyboard and I was like, okay, Lord, I know I asked you for this, but please make sure I can handle this. This is crazy.
Maybe not this much.
It was just like a whoosh,
I wanted something,
right?
but
the name too, it was so crazy. Like, out of like everywhere, even from the time when I was still in the island and then in the transition over to Wellington, the flower just was popping up everywhere, right? That's not a native flower to Tigerlili, right? Or to Florida. So it was like, in a bouquet walking by the window. It was on a truck driving by, on a billboard, on a magazine, like weird places. My son comes home from school. He's like in 5th grade. And he was like, hey, Mom, look what I made at school today in art class. Opened up and it was a gigantic Tigerlili.
Wow.
Aww.
And I'm like, seriously now, really? And he was like, yeah, I kind of messed it up. It was supposed to be a sunflower. And I was like, no, you did not mess that up. Right. So I'm like, all right, Lord, what is this? Right. Yeah. So I looked up the significance of the flower, right? Tigerlili flower is the most aggressive lily out of all of them. You take one down, immediately they start growing back and multiplying. The colors, the colors are orange with brown speckles, and the colors allude to it's the essence of feminine courage, and it alludes to self-worth, self-wealth, and creativity.
Say no more.
It's my favorite flower, but I didn't know that about it.
Right. I'm like, I couldn't
they
make that up.
They smell amazing.
They do, and they're just beautiful. Yeah. They're just so, and I couldn't make it up if I had to, right? So I had the premise of all of the ways that we were going to help moms tied to this purposeful flower. So the whole thing was the Lord, right? I could not have made this up, but I knew like the things that I struggled with, childcare, house help, car help, insurance, all those things, food.
Some single moms have limited family help support.
Yeah. So we built a community and it was amazing. So we built the community from knowing the need, right? Yeah. So when I came back here, I brought Tigerlili back with me. And it was a very different demographic. So in Florida, it's very much mamas want to keep up with the Joneses. They want to look good. They want to, like, nothing on the outside's wrong. Sure. Everything on the inside is a hot mess.
That's hard. That's sad.
Yeah. And here it's
it's just, we're hot.
Well, but the motives are just different. The motivations are different. Like the moms here were just like, I don't care. Like, they're like, honestly, it was very prideful. I don't need the help. I'm fine. I got it. Okay. I got it. But they would just fall apart. Yeah. And I'm like, Lord, why? I don't understand why this is so hard. Wow. Like, you told me to do this.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there, you would hold up a little flag of help and they'd be like, that flickering flag of like, yes, I need that. Wow. And here they were just like,
you would think the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he told me, like, when we were working with the mamas, he was like, basically just put the word out there that this is what you're doing. And he gave me the story of the woman with the issue of blood. And he was like, she diligently sought me out for a touch of what I had. He's like, you do the same. Yeah. All right. So that took this burden off of me of like striving to like, why won't they let us help them? Yeah. And then shortly after, that's when the whole train hit me of I was trafficked. And then I really realized like how much those two go hand in hand, And so when my son, I said he was playing baseball for a homeschool team, I dropped him off at practice. I came home. I don't ever take naps because who has time for that, right? You work.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I came home and like literally he shut my lights out. I was out for maybe about an hour and a half, right? And I have this picture that hangs on the hall outside of my bedroom. And it's called Jesus Laughing. A lot of people have seen the picture, but the Lord deals with me a million different ways with that picture, right? And it could be beautiful. It could be like, way to go kind of thing, right? But when I woke up and I saw the picture, the first thing I heard was, are you ready?
Wow.
And he weaved everything together again, right? Showed me all of it. And I was like, what? Yeah. Like, that was my story. Like, that was my secret. Nobody even knows about that.
Yeah.
Right. And he was like, I didn't save you for you to play it safe. Are you ready?
Wow.
I said, yes, I'm ready. I had no idea what I was ready for. But that yes shifted everything about our mission and what he has done through this.
exploded
Oh,
since
it's
then.
unreal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unreal. Like lives have been touched that I never would have guessed. We were in places I had no business being, but he put me there. So we were safe. You know, we had a drop-in center for like 2.5 years down in North City, right in the middle of hell. You know, there was drive-by shootings out in front of our corner all the time. There was open drug use, open prostitution. It was horrific, you know, but we were down there serving the girls because we ended up searching for a girl who was missing from O'Fallon, Missouri.
Wow.
She was I think at the time she was 24 maybe. And she started dating a guy and she thought he was a good guy. He was an entrepreneur. He had his own clothing line, like sportswear and stuff. Thought he was a great guy. They dated for months. Okay. He knew the family, went to holiday stuff. It was Cinco de Mayo. They had gone out for Cinco de Mayo and her daughter at the time was like almost 5. So mom kept her daughter, right? They went out and he passed her off to the traffickers. And so she was being forced to prostitute in North City on the street.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like it was like she was there for months. So we got wind of it.
And our family just didn't know where she was.
They couldn't, eventually they ended up finding her through a detective. And one of our volunteers at church one Sunday was walking from sanctuary out the front door and overheard a conversation between the dad and probably the pastor, because I think he was asking for prayer or whatever. And she overheard the conversation about kidnapping and prostitution. And she stopped and she was like, wait a minute, I have somebody that you need to talk to. And so got us connected with him.
Wow.
And so because she was an adult, the police, they found her, right? They did find her. They approached her and they asked if she was okay. Well, they're trained to be like, don't talk to them.
Yeah.
You're fine,
Yeah.
you know? So she was like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. And well, because she said that they couldn't do anything, you know? So he was like, if you still want to go down and look for her, then, you know, we'll let you know what we know. And I'm like, yes, I do. I'm like, her family wants her home. She doesn't want to be there. Her daughter wants her home, you know? So we went down and looked for her for probably about like, I don't know, 8 to 10 weeks, you know? And when I first went down there, you don't accidentally go to North City, you know? Like, oh, I made a wrong left turn and here I am.
Right.
No, you don't, right? I had no reason to go there before.
Yeah.
So when I'm there, I'm like, how are we ever going to find this girl? And the second time we went down there, it was like a Saturday night at 10:30. And we drove down the main stroll. And I'll never forget how many girls were out on the street. And I just looked at all of them and they're, you know, posing, doing their sales tactics, right? And I'm like, my God, like we're looking for this one, but who's looking for them? Who even cares that they're here? You know, they look at them like they're dirty, homeless addicts, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, nobody cares. Nobody's looking for them. And so that wrecked me forever. So we had our drop-in center there specifically for those girls. And it was beautiful. It was some of the best days of my life was going down to serve
You are
them.
a hero.
They were beautiful.
Wow.
Thank
It was
you.
incredible.
I can't. I mean, you're risking your life to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got shot at before.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I was like, either he's a really, really bad shot or he was just trying to scare me, you know?
Yeah.
Like he could have got me.
God's like, nope.
Right.
Not her.
Yeah. So, yeah, we did that for about 2.5 years. And,
So that just real briefly looked like you would open up shop in the evening when they were out. Like what?
no, daytime. We would go down. It was ladies' lunch with love. So every Wednesday we would go down and open the doors at like 11 o'clock and open up for lunch for them. And we had a feast. Oh my gosh. We had beautiful home cooked, good, hearty food for them. And we would eat together. It wasn't like we would serve them. We would sit down at a dining room table and we would eat together. And how we had it set up, it was like a house. It was so girly and so sweet and pretty. And like from the day we opened our doors, I was like, Lord, what am I doing?
And how did you even get funding for that?
That's what I was thinking.
We do all of our funding comes from people. We do not have state or federal funding because we're faith-based and I'm not going to limit what the Lord can do, right?
Yeah.
Because the state says, oh, we don't fund that, right? And they can pull funding all the time if they want to. So we really rely on people to fund it. That's predominantly our funding. Every so often we'll, gifts and grants and things like that. Grants are very few and far between. There's usually just not grants anyway for trafficking stuff. It's not enough known, I guess, really, for people to get behind it. Churches, not so much. Not really. Yeah, that's another time. They don't want to talk about it, you know? Yeah. And then we do special events, and just, letting people know what we're doing. And I try through our social media, I try to post a lot to keep people in our world and just see all the dirty work that we're doing that they don't have to, but they're helping by giving. Right. So, from the first week, I was just like, Lord, I'll go, but like, what am I doing here? Right? And he was like, feed them and love them and I'll do the rest.
And I'm sure the ability of you to relate to them open their hearts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And honestly, it was like immediately a sisterhood, immediately from the first lunch. I didn't know if anybody was going to show up. We were never empty from the first lunch on. It was amazing. And so many seeds were sown, lives were changed. We were like the exit point whenever they were ready to go, whenever they, we had to build up trust with them,
Right.
and when they said they were ready to go, that day they were gone. And so we knew, I didn't want to egotistically go into serving like this because I'm a survivor, right? I wanted to make sure I was filling a gap. And one of the biggest gaps, there's tons and tons of gaps because there's just not enough services anyway. But the biggest gap in my heart was emergency placement, because when they're ready to go, if you don't have a place for them to go, they're going to go right back and they could die, So we didn't have a safe home right away. We didn't get it for like 2 years after we were serving. So there's a lot of times I brought girls to my house. We'd have sleepovers, or we would go to a hotel and I would, stay with them in a hotel and check back with them, whatever. And then in like June of 2019, I was in my sunroom after church one day, minding my own business, mindlessly flipping on Facebook. And the Lord was like, look for a house. I'm like, what? Because like at that time, we literally just moved from the drop-in center. We had one room on the ground level and we moved upstairs to the whole upstairs, which was like 6 or 7 rooms. And we were in the middle of rehabbing. It was like hoarder mess up there. Big undertaking, right? And I was like, look for a house. Like, oh my gosh, we have this going on, but okay. And so I just went to Marketplace and I just put homes for sale near me. Okay. The first thumbnail that popped up was a 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom for like $62,000.
Wow.
I'm like, excuse me, what's wrong with this house? Right. And it just had the exterior picture. So I messaged the seller as if I had any business doing so. Right. And I was like, hey, just checking to see if this is available.
The Lord sent me.
Right.
Did he tell you?
Right. I'm just kidding. And he said that they just posted it the night before for sale by owner. It was the only place it was posted.
Wow.
Okay. He's a carpenter, the guy who built it. I'm like, of course he's a carpenter. Sure he is. So, we went, I asked if we could see it. Right. And he was like, yeah, my wife wants 24-hour notice just to clean up and what. I'm like, yeah, sure. That's life, of course. But if you don't mind, can I drive by it? If it's in an area I don't like, I won't bother you, So I get my son and we get in the car. I was like, hey, load up. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, we're going to go look at a house. And he's like, what are you doing?
Now what,
like,
Mom?
Yeah, exactly. Like, me so well. Yeah. I'm like, just get in the car. Come on. So like we're GPSing and, through these like country roads. And I'm like, where are we going? Right. And we get to the street that it's on and we pull down. I was like, this is actually pretty interesting. Right. And the neighbor, we passed up the house and my son was like, yeah, Mom, this is our house. I said, why? He's like, did you see the sign in the neighbor's yard? I said, no. And I turned around and was coming back out. And the sign said, he who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved.
Wow.
And he was like, that's our house. I said, all right. So that was in June and we closed on the house in August.
Wow. This June?
No, June of 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We had no business getting that house.
Wow.
None at all, except the Lord said so.
62,000 too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So it wasn't like mold or anything
No,
crazy on the
no.
Who buys a house for 62,000?
It was beautiful. It was just precious. It was just what we needed. So we call it the house that God built, right?
Aww.
So
did you keep the other building? The 5-room?
We kept it. Yeah, we did keep it for a while because we would, that was their like landing place. Whenever they would come, they were ready to go, we would go there.
Gotcha.
But then COVID hit and we were sharing a building with another ministry. And, True Colors came out during all of that, right?
Sure.
And we really discovered that we had very, very different worldviews, and it wasn't a healthy
Very
combination.
different Christian views. Or did you say they were Christian?
They were not.
Oh, they were not. Okay.
They were not.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And it was just a big becoming more on their side. I didn't really care one way or the other. We had business to do, right? But it just got really
maybe it's just
ugly.
God saying nope.
Yep.
Yeah.
That door's closing now, right? So, and that it made me sad, and I really for probably 6 months I tried to find a different property. It wasn't working, right? So I was like, all right, I hear you. That chapter is done. Okay. So, but we kept the house going. And then I don't know, we just kind of had one after another with insurance. We couldn't get insurance coverage anymore. It expired, and when it was time for renewal, because of the pandemic and everything, risk factors changed and all that. And it was really hard for us to get insurance anyway because of our
thank God you had the
population.
house at that point. What would you have done in that case if you didn't have your house, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't. Yeah. So it was just sitting there because we couldn't get it reinsured. They wouldn't renew us. Right. So we just had this house. I'm like, I'm not going to have this house sit empty. That's not why we have this house. Right. So another friend of mine, she was running another ministry just starting, and she was doing women's transition. And so it was on the very tail end of the recovery side. So they weren't considered high risk. Right. So that was able to be insured. Okay. So we let them run in the house for a season, to kind of get the marbles out of their mouth a little bit. And then that season was done. And probably in October of 22, the Lord started just whispering to me of prepare for the children.
Gosh, can you imagine?
Yeah. And I ignored it because I was like, that's not for us. We don't do that. We work with women, and the reason why we worked with adults was because if you're a minor, you're trafficked, right? There's no questions asked. Once you turn 18, you're a prostitute and you have to prove it. And they don't want to.
That is so sad.
Yeah.
It is so sad, the definition of that,
yeah.
just because you're an adult. Wow.
Yeah, you have to prove either force, fraud, or coercion. One of the three, not all three, but you have to prove it. And they don't want to do that because that means going in front of their trafficker.
Yeah.
And one of our girls, she got brave and she was going to do it, right? And I took her down to the detective's office. She did an amazing job of just pouring out the information. And I saw this guy's file. I'm not even kidding. It was like this on the detective's desk. And her story wasn't enough to do something to this guy. But he had other charges of guns and drugs and theft and all this stuff. But her story wasn't enough to do something, They wanted another girl. They needed another girl. She's enough,
right? Right.
So we were their voice, because, So, but October 22, he was prepared for the children. That's not for us. Okay. I've said that there.
Yeah.
And then it just kept coming every so often. It was a story. I was in Ohio driving down this road, right? And there was a roundabout. So you have the streets that come off the roundabout. I'm going around it and down one of the streets, far enough down I shouldn't have seen this. Okay. It was a billboard that was about fostering children. And I saw it it was right here, and I was like, what is that? It's not for me. I don't have time. That's not for me. I felt it too, that is so, I rebuke that. Right. But literally every couple of months, that billboard would pop back in my head. And then it just started picking up in severity, intensity, and okay, I will not ignore this anymore, but I don't know what this means. I don't know what this looks like, but you got my yes. Right. So I was at a women's conference, 2 Novembers ago. Yeah. Last November. Anyway, telling the story about prepare for the children, right? And again, don't know what this looks like, but we're walking into it. We are going to prepare, right? And the worship leader came up to me afterwards and she was like, Meredith, I got to let you when you were telling that story, the Lord gave me a vision of his hand coming down, and he was scooping up to his elbows into the earth and pulling out handfuls of women and children. And scooping them down and doing it again over and over. She's like, there's going to be so many that come out, women and children, right? So again, prepare for the children. So a friend of mine, we would talk every Wednesday morning for an hour. We'd just catch up and pray. And, we were praying intently, diligently for Lord, bring the right people into the house to run that program, because I knew that wasn't my role. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. I ran the house when it was for the women, but I knew that wasn't mine. I'm doing other things. Right. So for probably couple months, 4 months, maybe, we're praying about this. One day I'm making my bed and I have a vision of I'm talking to my friend, like she's in the phone. We're laughing like she's right in front of my face. And the Lord was like, it's them and it's now. And I knew exactly what he meant. So I messaged her. I'm like, hey, you're going to have to call me. This is not a text conversation. Okay. So she calls and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to dump this. You're not going to answer me right now. You're going to pray about it. And then you're going to call me back. Okay. And so I did. I was like, I'm telling her the story. The Lord highlighted you guys. And she just starts glowing and beaming. And I'm like, you're not supposed to answer me right now. That's what I'm thinking. Right. And she was like, oh my gosh. She's like, Meredith, you have no idea. She's like, I think this might be the season. She said in 2019, her and her husband lived up near Chicago and they were starting the application to be a part of, it's called Safe Families, Safe Families. And it's basically like a respite care for just children in need, any child in need, right? And they started doing the application process and then COVID hit. Well, her husband, he's an emergency room nurse and he worked on the COVID floor at the hospital. Okay. Oh, wow. And then I think at the same time she was pregnant with her third baby, so she's like, so when that happened, like life stopped, we didn't proceed. Right. And she's like, but I feel like the Lord's saying like, this is the season. Oh my gosh. And I was like, don't answer me right now. I was like, get off. She's like, okay, let me figure out how to tell Joe. Cause he's like very like, logical and she's very like, whoa, right. So she's like, maybe give me like a day or two and get off. I'm like, that girl's not going to last to today. So she calls me back and she was like, basically they got the yes. Right. So we officially did the transition of directorship of the house in October. They have now moved in the home. She is a trauma counselor who specializes in SRA.
That's crazy. Wow. What is SRA?
SRA is satanic ritual abuse.
Oh wow. Wow.
Like that's even a thing, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And again, he's the emergency room nurse, right? So very incredible people to be running this, right? So we're giving them time to acclimate and get in and get settled. So that will be ready to open again in March of 25. So, and there we can bring in 3 children at a time, depending on the child, if they can handle other kids coming in or not. But it's going to be the same model.
Any children, sex trafficked
all
children?
Sex traffic. That's all we focus on, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's all we focus on. And literally like, and another reason why I couldn't ignore the shift was because, whenever we would be out connecting with like law enforcement, medical, whatever, they would ask all the time, do you have anything for kids? No, I don't. That's not really what, and they would be like, oh, we don't have anything. We have no place to put these kids. Right. And so many times, like, I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of children that DCFS would acquire, have whatever, and they had no place to put them. They would literally be on cots in the DCFS office for like days or weeks until they found some place to go. And that's not okay. No, these are precious little ones that just came out of hell. They don't want to be on a cot in an office, So we're going to be forging relationships in that aspect too. And then a crazy God note.
A crazy God note. Talk about like 30 of them already from what you shared.
I know this one's a big one. This one's a really big one.
Is this more recent? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
This is very recent. So every quarter I go to Grace Church in Maryland Heights for their men's breakfast. It's Men of Grace. And either I will speak and give an update of what we've got going on, or we have a table set up and they pass by and update, right? Yeah. So from the house to there, it's just about an hour, right? I needed gas. Okay. I had gas to get there, not to get gas to get back. And I was like, no big deal. There's a gas station right across the street. I'll just get gas after and all is well, right? Yeah. But I forgot to get gas afterwards. So I'm driving home and I'm on like the bridge, the road going to the bridge to go across to Alton, right? Well, my gas light comes on and I'm at the last light that happens to have 2 gas stations, right? And I'm like, oh, praise God. Can't believe I forgot, but I'm right here, right? So I pull in. And I have a pretty big truck. My truck is like,
I saw it this morning.
Apocalyptic looking.
Yeah.
And on the back window, it says, end human trafficking in America, learn how. This lady pulls behind us and asks, hey, what is that? What do you guys got going on? So, start chatting with her and literally have like a 3-minute conversation. Okay. About this is what we do. We have a safe home. We're getting ready to open up an office space, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, so, hey, do you need a house? Like, who gets asked that? Do you need a house? And I'm like, and I literally felt.
You're like, excuse me?
Felt and heard Holy Spirit cover my mouth. They're like, don't you dare say no. Right. And I'm like, Sure. I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but okay. Yeah. So that was on a Saturday, and the following Thursday, I met her out at this property that we now have.
Wow.
Okay. It is not just a house. It is 25 acres. There is a main house. There is a workshop.
It's like a Karen testimony.
No.
And there, right? I listened to that, by the way, and I was just like,
well,
I grab onto that big time.
Similar story.
Yeah. And so there's the main house, a workshop, and then a horse arena with stables. Okay.
Was it given to you? Do you have to pay a little bit?
We are, okay. Yeah. It is kind of on trade right now. Her father built the house, and he is a retired Air Force colonel, pilot for like 30 something years, right? Mm-hmm. He's still alive, but he is in the VA in South County, and he has Alzheimer's really bad. Mm-hmm. So he hasn't been in the home in a long, long time, and it's just dying, right? Mm-hmm. And so she was like, "Hey, can you see you here?" And I'm like, "Well, of course I can."
Who couldn't?
Like, but I have no idea how, And I was like, this is not even at all, right? And she's like, "Well, here's the thing. I can't make money on it because it's in a trust, right? Until he passes." Mm-hmm. So we are definitely, not trying to speed that up by any means. Yeah. I hope him long life, and I hope he gets better, right? Right. But we have first right to purchase. Wow. When he passes. So we're basically in there like property managing, and she's like, just practice, see if this is something that fits for you guys. Yeah. And we pay for our utilities that we use. And wow. Yeah, we've had there's been a lot of work that had to be done to it and still needs to be done to it. It really was dying. But that property is Kingdom Come Mission Retreat Center. So the use of that property is going to be for when the kiddos are done at the safe house, because that's emergency short term, okay, not long fostering. So when they're done there and they're either being returned home, if that's safe, or if they're being placed with a foster family, they can go to the retreat center for a few days and just be together in a neutral space to just breathe and just love and have fun.
And if are you gonna have horses there?
Yeah,
that's so therapeutic.
Yes. Yeah. And just be at peace, So, and incredible. she's offered us first right to purchase when he passes. And I don't know. I'm going to say it again and again. I firmly believe that she's going to see so much life come out of this property that it is going to be gifted. I'm going to say that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, God put you there obviously for a reason. He's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So and a lot of people just don't really know. I'm going to put an ask out for everybody who is listening right now. We really do look for opportunities to do presentations and educate people on what this looks like, because literally nobody is immune to it. Like you live out here in this beautiful tucked away little place, right? You're like, they're not immune to it because everybody's got a device, right? Yeah. And that's where it starts at. And people just don't think that.
So we have a women's community, 3,000 strong almost, local Lincoln County for the most part. I assume there's potentially women involved in that, or would that not statistically be the case?
What do you mean?
Like, would there potentially be women here, even in Lincoln County, involved in
it?
Absolutely. So could you do a brief message for anyone out there that might be involved in it, that A, doesn't know that they're involved in it, and B, like resources or just to plead to their heart that God will take care of them?
Yes. Well, that's the first thing I will say. God will take care of you first and foremost. Yeah. So like I said, anybody is suspect for it, right? If you are in a moment of vulnerability, like I'll even give an example, women, if you, I used dating sites for a while. I didn't want to meet somebody out in public. I wanted to be able to screen them and talk to them and vet them and, and then schedule a time to meet during the day and whatever. And even like, you're not even safe on dating sites. They really prowl on there too. And it doesn't even start at, it's so subtle. They're very calculated. You might think you're going on a date with somebody, right? But it's very much not that. So very like tap into your inner knowing, right? Listen to Holy Spirit's promptings of, hey girl, that's not the one. Yeah. And listen to that,
if it seems too good to be true,
it probably is. Yeah. And even like for your kids, like if you have children that are on devices, even if you have blocks or things, don't think that they can't get approached online. It is absolutely mind-blowing.
Can you give us any examples of something like that you've heard of?
Yes.
Like just like take us there so we know.
Okay. Well, a personal experience that happened twice in one family. It's a blended family. Mom, dad. Dad's got a 13-year-old daughter. Mom has a now 16-year-old son. Okay. Opposite families, blended family. So dad's 13-year-old daughter was talking to a boy online for a while. Like, family knew him, knew the name. She was very smitten with this little guy. Dad was strict. Mom was a little more lax, right? So the boy convinced girl, hey, when you're at your mom's house, sneak out and let's meet. Okay. So they've been talking for quite a while. So where they live at, it is down in, this is Lincoln, right? Lincoln, all right, Franklin County. Franklin County is very known for trafficking, drugs, guns, people, whatever. So they have a curfew down there. If you're under 16, you have to be in by 9:30. So this little girl was at mom's house and she sneaks out of the house to go meet the boy. She stops at a gas station. A state trooper happens to stop in also, sees her out and was like, hey, what you doing out? It's past curfew. You know, you're not supposed to be out now, right? Well, dad, who is strict, is like, you know, if you ever get caught doing, just fess up. We can help you, right? Yeah. If not, if you lie, you're going to make it worse. So she was like, oh, I'm on my way to a friend's house. He's going to have a sleepover, right? And he's like, oh, who's your friend? And she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go see a boy. Well, who's the boy, right? So he starts questioning, gets in her phone and sees the communication that she's having with the boy. And it's not a boy. It is a trafficking ring. And this little girl was literally from the gas station to the apartment community right next door, away from being gone.
Wow.
And the state trooper just happened to be there and got her back home.
Wow.
Okay. 2 months later, mom calls me. She's like, I don't know what to do with this. She's like, I just got a call from my son's principal. He's down in the office. He said that he's not in trouble. He's a victim and the FBI is on the way. What? Would you like that phone call? No, you would not like that phone call. She's like, I don't know what to do with this. Right.
That's insane.
Yeah. So this boy, when he was 14, thought he was talking to a girl and they had been talking for quite a while also. And
is this like Instagram, social media, like something
whatever,
like that?
Yeah, Snapchats and whatever, you know, whatever their regular platforms are. And they had been, again, talking for a while. And, you know, nowadays, like the levels of dating, it's online. So if you talk to somebody online, you're dating. That's my boyfriend, right? No, you're not dating anybody.
Right.
You're not seeing anyone. Sorry, that's not dating. But that's dating, right? And to take it higher in your relationship, you send pictures. Okay, so it started sending pictures, regular pictures. And then girl was like, send me a picture, right?
Yeah.
So he did. Send me another one. So he did. Send me a video. So he did. And they're swapping, right?
Yeah.
And then one day she was like, hey, who are you home with? And he was like, oh, it's me and my sister. Go take pictures of your sister. Oh. Excuse me, what?
Yeah.
Right? And he was like, okay, I don't think we need to be talking anymore.
Yeah.
So she screenshot his friends list on social media page and sent them to him and said, if you don't, all these pictures and videos that you just sent me are going to go to all your friends.
Oh my gosh. And is this happening thousands and thousands of
over
times?
and over and over again.
Like, this seems insane.
Over and over and over.
2 kids from the same family.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so scary.
Girl was almost literally trafficked. The boy was a victim of sextortion. Okay. And because he was a minor, that's child sexual abuse material. And in the presentations that we do, I mean, I give some crazy stats of how much of an explosion there has been.
Can you give us some stats? Do you have any off recollection or even like?
Well, okay. 80% of crimes against children start on social media.
Wow.
80% of them, right? Wow. That's just one. Yeah. The creation of child sexual abuse material has increased like 400% in like 4 years.
That makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah. And so
these people aren't getting prosecuted. And if they are, it's like, you know, they're getting out of jail just like somebody that steals a pack of gum at the gas station. Yeah.
Well, if you follow on our Facebook page, I do get press releases from the Attorney General's office, and they have a program, I guess. It's like Safe Children, and they'll give out press releases of convictions that they do. And it's ridiculous. Like how many you'll see listed of child porn, and they call it child porn. It's not child porn because pornography alludes to, consent. And if you're a child, you don't consent to that.
Right.
So it's CSAM, it's child sexual abuse material, which alludes to every time you're looking at this image, that child is getting abused over and over again. Right. But it's in America, it predominantly is technology driven. Yeah.
And you don't know, like, does it affect 1 in 30 households, or is there any even stats on that, or is there just so much to be
well,
done on
okay,
it?
let's see. The population, the U.S. population of kids between the ages of 10 and 19 is about 64.5 million. Okay, that's the U.S. population. Of that, 32.6 million kids have been approached online.
So half.
That's half.
Essentially
Yeah.
half.
Of the 10 to 19
Oh my
year olds.
gosh, this is scary.
Yeah. So literally 1 in 2. 1 in 2. And sometimes when I do presentations,
I mean, let's just be honest. We get approached like, hey, here, you want to see a nudie picture?
Right.
You
yeah,
know?
the kids do quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes when I do presentations, I will do like real stat of like, I'll post like a fake something, right? That I could be a minor.
Yeah.
Right. The wording alludes to you could be.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, within seconds, the amount of responses I get from men, you can't keep up with the volume.
Where are all these sick people?
Yeah.
Lord, save these people.
Yeah.
But honestly, though, aren't those people the
They're
ones
just
that
broken. They were broken.
Well, weren't they like
Yeah.
victims
Yeah.
too? Oftentimes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so much.
cycle.
I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, so much work needs to be done in here.
Yes.
We maybe have like 3 minutes. I'll just be a little late to bring Ty to school. It's just such a good topic. You had told me that you were doing presentations with Amen, and that's something on your heart. So if you're out there listening, if there is a place, which in the future we feel like we're going to have a panel and going around and speaking at some point. But if you have an avenue for her to get this word out, please, even through social or whatever, please, we'll help you connect with her.
Yeah. This is literally the way that this is how we connect with our people. Because like I said, this is how we get our support too, because we don't have mass funding. So it is literally grassroots people to people who are just moved to take action in this, and we have our fundraiser that's coming up. January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So January 18th, we have our Shine a Light the Fire awareness and fundraising event. And I have the information right here.
Samantha will post it
All right,
on her
cool.
page.
Yeah, so it's in St.
Go ahead.
Peter's. Yeah,
Feel free to say it.
1371. Friends of mine, actually, it's their property. It's Faith Farm Ministries. It's an absolutely precious location. I'm actually going there from here to walk the venue.
Yeah.
But it's going to be sweet, just kind of like a warm, fuzzy, wintry type of scene. But yeah, it's one of our bigger fundraisers of the year.
And are you looking for volunteers to help too?
Yes. Yeah. We will need volunteers that night. So,
real quick, you were mentioning to me God opening the door for you to speak at Amen, which almost to you seems like, why God? This doesn't make any sense.
Oh, it was
right?
perfect. It was perfect.
So what did he do in that period of time? And
yeah, so I think I'm coming up next month. I'll have like my 8th presentation with Amen.
like Amen employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's their safety team. It's like their safety
On
meetings.
the electric side, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So far. Yep. And
so this amazing company has like opened the door. I guess you got connected with somebody that said yes.
Yeah, it was somebody. I don't remember how the original started, but it was through an event and through a church, and somebody worked at the church, or somebody that was at the church worked at Amen, and so that person reached out and that door opened.
Which again she was at first like, okay, God, I don't know why I'm speaking to Amen employees, but then
every time I talk, it's no less than like 40 men that I talk to. And that's incredible, because to get that message out in front of that many men and watch like daddy hearts come awake, and get that righteous anger inside of them. It's been incredible. And, it's a slow and steady process of keeping relationship and keeping connection. But just to even be able to share that there, because those
are the guys going into people's homes. So
and in the, like, it's
probably
their linemen.
going to get, like people can, I guess, keep, a sex trafficking victim hidden and all these things, or an abused woman hidden. But when their electric goes out, they still have to have somebody go there.
A lot of them are linemen, right? So they're high above. Yeah. They are seeing the community, and people don't pay attention to them.
Yeah.
That's just, it's a utility worker.
Right.
But they've got a bird's eye view, literally,
Yeah. Thank you so very much for joining today. This is amazing. And I think we could talk on, this topic for much, much longer.
Yeah.
But any final words of anything you'd like to say, and then also where people can follow you?
Yes. Right now, okay, so today is November 19th. We have 12 days left of our 30-day campaign in November. It was 30 days of difference, and we are looking to obtain 30 new monthly supporters this month. So far, we have obtained 4 of the 30. So we are definitely definitely seeking more monthly supporters. And that all of that funding helps us go to developing these properties that we have so we can serve these children. But you can find us on Facebook, Tigerlili Resources USA. There's Tigerlili Resources STL. That is our old page because Facebook shut us down. I don't have access to that.
Wonder why they would shut you down.
I don't know why. I don't know why. But yeah, so Tigerlili Resources USA, I post a lot on there so you can see the ins and outs of the day to day, right?
Yeah.
Our website is tigerliliresources.org, and it's TIGERLILI resources. Everybody always spells it wrong. But that's the nuts and bolts in there. But that's how you can connect with us. That's how you can give on there. That's how you can get tickets for the event. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, all of them, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, all of them. Yeah.
Well done, sister in Christ.
Yes, that's an incredible story.
We have a community. We do outreach events. And so maybe there's a way that we can connect when you're overhauling your house or getting it tidy or cleaning up or pulling weeds and whatever. We would love to support you too.
Awesome.
And just really stay connected. So
thank you. I appreciate it so much more than you know.
Yeah.
Like we need each other
Yes.
for this. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Okay.
It's our closing question. What are you having for dinner tonight?
I honestly am probably having leftovers. No brainers, you know.
We're eating out because we have a jamboree game. So
oh, nice. We're going to a movies tonight.
Fun.
So I don't know what we have. Chicken and potatoes, like a pre-marinated chicken from Aldi.
those are good.
I could probably have that ready before we go to dinner. So I will do that. And then we're just going to do some potatoes in the air fryer.
Yes, I'm having pork loin, lemon pepper pork loin.
Yeah.
And potatoes.
Okay, so very
salad.
Similar.
Yeah.
Mine just chicken.
Yummy.
So
Okay. Well, thank you. Wow. Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I mean, God is so good. This just reminds me of just how women need community and also how you're just a brave soul for doing this. This is something that I don't think anybody wants to touch, but we desperately need people to do that. Just like the Sound of Freedom movie, like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, and thank God again for true heroes like that. So yeah.
Appreciate you very much. It's an honor to do this.
Godspeed.
Honestly.
Godspeed.
Thank you, ladies.
See you next time, mamas. Okay, bye.
Feeling slow, I can see clear.